Hello, what's up friends? I'm Darkoburi the Collector. Welcome to this week's video where we're bringing you a new company, Cloud Studio. So stick with us to see what mysterious piece we're going to unbox today. And now, to be able to do the unboxing of this new company, a new studio, and judging by the size of the box, you already know it's going to be an impressive resin piece. It's Cloud Studio's turn. Honestly, I hadn't seen this company around before. I hadn't heard of them. But I have a very good friend I follow on Instagram, who has now become my supplier, Kaio Nation, sending him a big shout out. He was the one who took care of sending this piece from Spain to the United States. And here on this side is where we're going to take into account all the details of our piece. It comes with the piece number, which is 545 out of 957, a box weight of 10 kilos, but the figure itself only weighs 7 kilos. So, without further ado, let me take out the piece so you can see the outside of the box, and then we'll move on to assembling the figure and detailing each part. So stay with us here on the Darkoburi channel. Now that we have the box, let's analyze it. Honestly, it looks a bit simple, but with this, you get quite a spoiler. These two eyes really say a lot, and it's a character from the Naruto series. Many of you had already told me, hey, it's been a long time since you did a Naruto unboxing. And I said, honestly, I'm not going to do another unboxing from this amazing series unless it's something epic. And here we have these striking eyes, and I'll tell you who they belong to, one of the best villains in the Naruto universe. It's Pain, who was considered the leader of the Akatsuki. Here, again on this side of the box, we have Pain, and here, obviously, we have the League of Villains this mega villain belonged to. We'll talk a bit more about the story in a moment, but I want to show you that up here on the top is the name of the studio. As you already saw, this is a limited edition piece, just under 1,000 pieces worldwide, so you have the privilege of seeing this resin, this statue, here with us. Let me start taking out all the pieces that are inside here. We're starting with the assembly, the presentation of the diorama, and check this out because it's such an awesome piece, it'll blow you away. Let me take it out, stay with us. We'll continue with Pain right here on the Dark Burning channel. Before starting with the figure, I paused for a moment because honestly, this part of the box also deserves to be analyzed. I really like these bands that sometimes come with the pieces to keep them from moving around. With many other figures or resins, they just use tape to cover this part, but with these bands, you make sure your piece doesn't arrive bumped, damaged, or even broken. And here, the studio didn't hold back, putting Cloud Studio on each one of them. And now, if you know that the Akatsuki had these clouds, kind of red in color, on their clothing, it really fits perfectly with this unboxing. And now, without further ado, I'm going to take out the piece, let's do the real unboxing, and now we have all our pieces here. Here's the mega base, and honestly, the figure is pretty impressive. If you notice, it's not as big as some of the other colossal resin figures we've unboxed, but honestly, it's going to be a spectacular piece. The first thing we need to look at before starting the assembly, obviously, is the base. Here, I wasn't disappointed. If you look, it has the name of the piece, the name of the studio, and the number of the piece we have, which is 545. We had already noticed that we had that number, and here it is. What I like is that they write it by hand, both here on the outside of the box and, additionally, as I'll show you in a moment, on the certificate of authenticity for the piece. Here on the front, we see the diorama as if it were a rock, let's say a bit destroyed. We're going to assemble it in a moment, but the interesting part is on the back of the base. It's not just a rock covering the front, you can also display it from the back, and I think it looks absolutely incredible. You can start by looking at the face you see here, and of course, Pain's distinctive feature is his eyes. If you know what the eyes he has are called, leave it in the comments. Honestly, you don't see them very often. Later on, Sasuke is the one who gets this kind of attack, this kind of power in his eye. There were also some other clans, like Niji's, that had different powers such as the Byakugan. But here, the Rinnegan, if you already wrote it in the comments, you get a perfect score. The Rinnegan is seen for the first time here with Pain. And honestly, he's a mega villain because at first, we have no idea what's going on. By the way, I'm about to give you some Naruto spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. Honestly, I recommend it, especially this part where they go up against each of the Akatsuki. But check this out, there's this whole part of the face, a section that looks like piping, and over here it's like a little terrace. We have these symbols on this side, and the same symbol over here on this side, plus the entire outline of the base. Honestly, it's spectacular. It's like the eye itself. It finishes with the detail here on the back. Honestly, it's spectacular. The base did not disappoint. I'll let you take a closer look at the detail on the back before we actually start assembling our figure. And now, to start the assembly, I'm going to tell you a bit about the Akatsuki organization. Why? Because it's the first piece you should place here in your diorama. Here we have our friend Pain. Let's put friend in quotes. Honestly, he's one of the villains at the beginning when the whole Akatsuki movement starts. At first, you only see his eyes. You don't really get to see who Pain is until later, when Jiraiya starts fighting him. But here, if you remember, Akatsuki literally means this, the red clouds. All the members of the organization wore this kind of cloak, this long cape with red clouds on it. The inside is completely red, and the outside, let's say the part without the clouds, is black. Each member of the organization wore a ring, and they could wear it on any finger they wanted. And in Pain's case, for example, he even had his nails painted. So here, the symbol that Pain has on his ring, let's do a close-up of the figure in a moment, was what completed the Akatsuki outfit. Honestly, they had some really great fights, and the ones with Pain were some of the most epic, some of my favorites. Now it's your turn. Which of all the fights against the Akatsuki did you like the most? For me, the first one with Chiyo-Basama, where she manages to summon a puppet on each of her fingers, but Sasori says, you know what? Well, I beat you because he opened his heart and manages to summon 1,000 puppets. Here, I also really like Jiraiya's fight, which starts off with him fighting just like that against Nagato. We'll explain what each thing means in a bit, but at the end of the day, he transforms into Sage Mode, the Wise Mode, where he starts to change a little, and when he finally decides his fate, he manages to leave a message on the back of the frog, the old man, and with that, it's the end of Jiraiya. It's the moment when any man, straight or not, cried, and honestly, it's a super epic fight. But let's talk about the piece here. We see the cloak, it's really impressive. He's wearing blue pants, and here we can also see he has the protector, let's say at ankle height, in white, and the sandals, his footwear, in blue, and we see his toenails painted. That's something Pain always had, his toenails painted. Here, our friends from Cloud Studios included 2 faces. Honestly, I don't get why, because if you look at them, they're totally identical. If you spot any difference, like those, find the 10 differences games. If you see any, leave it in the comments, both the front and the back, because to me, they're identical. So, you're just going to place it here on your piece. And let's remember that this character, Pain, could control each of the bodies we're going to assemble, and this one was called Yuhiko, who was his childhood friend, the outgoing one, the one who wanted to change the world, revolutionize the ninja world, who ends up dying, and out of honor for him, they revive him. And through all these things he had inserted, which they also included really well, these little rods, he was able to control these bodies. But now, more about the details of our friend Pain. Here, we're going to have the hand on the side, and check out that this is also the part where he has the little dot that was used for control. He would come, stick these parts in, break it off so only this part would stick out. Obviously, since he was already dead, he could control the body. And here on this part of the hand, we see the ring, but you just can't see the symbol that was on the ring. Why is that? Because the piece is pretty tiny and you can only see a purple color on the ring. Let's meticulously analyze the other hand in great detail, and then we will carefully put it on. It is simply a tightly closed fist. In this particular case, we can clearly see all the numerous little dots of this distinctive material and the individual fingers positioned here on this side. We can also distinctly observe that the nails are beautifully painted a vibrant red color. Here we have both hands prominently displayed, one gracefully open and the other firmly closed. Let's proceed to put them on. And now let's take a very close and careful look at the intricate detail. Let's specifically call it Yajiko's remarkable detail here on the renowned Darkoburi channel. Honestly, what comes next is that you can assemble absolutely whatever you desire or prefer, but let's initially start with the one that goes down here at this precise location. We will carefully put it on in just a moment, but it definitively goes right here. And if you vividly remember, he possessed complete control over several of the bodies, but at some critical point, he intentionally loses that control because he absolutely had to utilize his chakra. Remember, that was his vital energy source for performing his powerful jutsus, which are essentially his extraordinary powers. And when he finally arrives at Konoha and begins causing all that immense chaos and destruction, one of my absolute favorite fights was when he bravely fought against the formidable Kakashi. He emphatically tells him, "You know what, copy ninja? You are truly and exceptionally dangerous." He then swiftly grabs a screw and forcefully throws it at him with the incredible almighty push, with the devastating Shinra Tensei, and at that precise moment, Kakashi just helplessly lets himself fall. He tragically died. They brutally killed him. But then it miraculously turns out he didn't actually die, because he had a tiny bit of residual energy left with his powerful Manjikyu Sharingan, and he skillfully sent that small, insignificant nail to another completely different dimension. Here we can also see that this other body he had was a more robotic one, and he mainly used it to launch weapons, to fire rockets, to shoot missiles, to throw things. Honestly, it was one of the bodies that got destroyed quite a few times. Right after Naruto appears following the summoning, he starts attacking Tsunade, and Naruto shows up and bam, destroys him. They rebuild him, and Naruto kills him again. And then they rebuild him again, and Naruto kills him again. You might be wondering at home, if you haven't seen Naruto, what do you mean by they rebuild him? We're about to get to that. Here we're going to take a closer look at the piece itself. We can see the pointed skull. Here it looks kind of like the spiky shell from the turtles in Mario Kart. Honestly, it's pretty spot on. It also has his ninja headband, like the one from the village hidden in the rain, with the slash through it for Rogue Ninja. If you look at the face, you can also see the Rinnegan eyes, and it has all the piercings on the face. What you notice is that it also has a lot of arms, and the whole thing looks kind of like a Frankenstein, like it was pieced together. Here you can see some effects that look like screws in the arms, and all along the arm you can see them. Now, this material I was telling you about, with which Nagato controlled each of his clones, each of his bodies, you can see it in each of the arms. On this side, we don't have the little hand, we'll put it on in a moment, and now the piece is left completely gray, but honestly, they all came dressed exactly the same with their black Akatsuki cloak with red clouds. And now I'll leave you so you can check out the details of the second person that Pain possesses here on Darkoburi's channel. And now we're ready to assemble the next piece of our Pain diorama. And next up is this one, who in my opinion is getting a bit of a favor here in the piece because he was the chubby one of the group, but that doesn't mean he was weak. What ability did this person have? He could absorb attacks with powers. So when Jiraiya showed up, and honestly, they pulled out that Cho Otama Rasengan, which was the giant Rasengan, he just absorbed it. And while Naruto was fighting Pain, his dad and mom, who always give him the best tips, told him, "Hey, you know what? He absorbs energy, and if you remember, he grabs Naruto and Naruto starts struggling, runs out of energy, and what does Naruto do? He enters Sage mode, starts absorbing natural energy, but remember that the more natural energy you absorb, the more you turn into a toad, and in the end, you end up petrified. So let's say this really was his end, which fits perfectly with how it happened in the series. He had Naruto in his grasp and absorbed way too much natural energy, and he ended up turning, with that big nose, the warts that popped up on his nose. He became a toad and ended up petrified. Here, we can see his hair is slicked back, And if you look at the back of his headband, you can see his ponytail. We also see the scratched out insignia, just like with the Village of the Rain, and here are his hands. On both hands, he has the same symbols showing he's being controlled. And what I like the most is that on the back here, you can see the cloud. Like I said, he looks petrified because of the diorama, but they all wore their Akatsuki cloaks, which honestly, I have mine too and it's super cool. And it goes all the way up, buttoned all the way to the top, and honestly, the figure is impressive. Now, let's get into the details of this third pain here on the Darkoburi channel. And now let's move on to the fourth member, who in my opinion, after being able to use the Shinra Tensei, had the most useful jutsu here. He was also the one they told Naruto, you know what, you have to take him out first because he's the one causing us all this chaos. So, what special ability did this pain have? He would bring out a head, let's say the ground would turn purple, and the demon's head would emerge. The demon, for example, would eat the body of someone who was dead and then spit them out revived. That's how the pains managed to recover and come back to life. And why could they do that? Because the one who was doing the summoning jutsus just now, well, she got unlucky and they always end up killing her. And the one I mentioned before, they would end up tearing him apart and then fixing him again. Later on, there's a combo breaker. Our good Naruto starts throwing, let's say, his Rasengan, now with the Rasen Shuriken, and then it turns out it wasn't a feint. Why? Because he was going to absorb it, and then Naruto transforms again and tackles him right at the moment when everyone else is about to go after him. Then he does the Rasen Barrage, which was like a rain of Rasengans, and that's how he manages to kill him. From there, he was able to start killing all the other pains, and honestly, the fight started getting a bit easier for him until they reached the point where this fight happened. And honestly, I don't know what happened with Naruto. When it was the most important fight, the top-notch animators, the ones who were supposed to do the animation, went on vacation or took a Chinese sabbatical month, and the animation for the first part of the fight against this pain, was terrible. One of the worst animations I've seen in all of anime history. If you agree, leave it in the comments. But now, let's talk about this piece. Check it out, it also has the messy hair here like Yahiko. It also has his headband. It has the scratched out symbol of the Rain Village. And here we can see his hands already getting his jutsu ready. Other than that, it's just his cloak, and it's pretty simple. Here, just on the front, you can see the little cloud that the pains have here. And now, let's get into the details, the close-up. Take a look here on Dark Buddy's channel. And now, this was the easiest part to assemble. It was simply the body and the head, this part or this being of pain, since they're all pain, but only one is pain who isn't here. Now it's like a tongue twister. The real pain isn't included. Here, Nagato is the one missing from this diorama, but that's okay. Here, with Yahiko and the other parts of Pain, we have this one who was like the master of summons and also delivered a really, really painful kick to the... You know. Why? Because he started by summoning something like a pterodactyl, which also had all these embedded parts to maintain control, and all of them also had the Rinnegan eye. That's something Jiraiya only discovers at the end, and that's when he says, you know what? They're all interconnected and they're all pain, so what one saw, she saw, he saw, and everything else, parts of Pain could see it. It's something that, honestly, was bad because no matter how fast Jiraiya moved, even in Sage mode, which was an epic fight, he couldn't land any hits. Why? Because he was looking one way, the other was going another way, and then he had his summons over here. Of the summons I can more or less remember from the fight against Naruto, he starts by summoning a rhinoceros, all of them with Rinnegan eyes. Then, about halfway through, when he's fighting against Gamabunta and the other toads that were there, he summons the dog, kind of like Cerberus, but it was more like a hydra. Every time they killed one, it would multiply and another would come out, and then more and more would appear. They really struggled with that, a lot. Then one comes out that looks like a pterodactyl, and that's when Naruto comes up with the whole plan with Gamabunta and the little toads, with the dad, let's call him that, and the grandpa and grandma, and they create a smoke screen, sorry, a curtain of smoke. They come in, swallow both of them, and Naruto fights inside the mouth of one of the toads to defeat him. Once they kill him, the summons disappear, but then this character shows up who keeps reviving them. He revives him, and they keep bringing him back. They tell you to kill him, and from there you start taking out everyone. Now, this was a pretty short character in my opinion, kind of looked like a woman, sort of youngish, and you can see it here by the haircut, kind of a bun style, and honestly, the eyes too. He also has the symbol of the Hidden Rain Village crossed out, and honestly, his build is really small because he specialized in fighting with summons. But now it's time for you to see the close-up, so let's check out the details of this piece here on the Darkwood channel. And now it's time to talk about this last Pain body, which, honestly, was pretty useful for infiltration and gathering information, but during the fight, we saw he was pretty much useless. The only good thing he did was when Naruto tested his Rasen Shuriken with the wind element, he grabbed the one with the summons, threw him, and ended up getting caught and destroyed by Naruto's Rasengan. So, honestly, he didn't do much in that epic fight against Naruto, but the figure is spectacular. He had really long hair, and you can see the same details on his nose and the crossed out Hidden Rain Village symbol, since they're rogue ninjas. Other than that, he's got the cloak, and on his arms, you see the same detailing. And check this out, out of all of them, only this body wore the ring. None of the others have the Akatsuki ring. Honestly, it's pretty simple. Not much to say because he didn't really fight much against Naruto and just took the hits. So, let's do a close-up of this piece to wrap up our diorama, because there's a super cool surprise element coming up. So, let's check out the details of this piece here on the Darkoburi channel. And now, one of the saddest moments of this fight is when the Toad Dad gets taken out. You can see it's super cool how they put all the details in. The whole gray hair, the top part of the hair also gray, kind of like a mohawk, and you can see his eyes completely closed with some details. But what's awesome is if you check the base on this side, there's something painted red. That's the spot where this character goes. I used to call him Paps, kind of like Naruto did. And remember, both the Grandpa Toad and the Grandma Toad were the ones who trained Naruto for his Sage Mode. And this is where he met his sad end. Remember, he gets impaled and stays there. Honestly, it's something super cool. One of the first jutsu they pulled off was the combination where both of them sang and created a genjutsu, which helped Jiraiya get out of trouble, more or less. And the other combo they did with Jiraiya was when one of them shot a gust of wind, the other shot a blast of oil, and Jiraiya lit it on fire, so the jutsu got even stronger, and honestly, it was super cool. The grandma, let's call her the Frog Grandma, since that's really who she is, helped a lot with the reverse Kuchios no Jutsu. Instead of us doing the summoning, she would summon the Narutos who were in Sage Mode, since they have a time limit. So, when the time ran out, and Naruto, being really clever, left clones like that with natural energy. They would bring it, the jutsu would be undone, and Naruto would automatically enter Sage Mode. These were key elements that allowed Naruto to actually defeat his enemies and become the savior of Konoha. Honestly, let's all give them a truly well-deserved round of applause, a respectful moment of profound silence. Let's do a very close-up shot while we humbly bow to Paps here on the amazing Darkoburi channel. And now, with significantly fewer pieces to manage, we can proceed straight, for example, to this particular part that originally went right here on a tiny little hand. Let's carefully put it on pain here. Well, it unfortunately already fell off before it could even properly go over there. We'll definitely put it back on in just a moment. We are still missing this crucial part here. What exactly was it that Pain did with that specific piece? The idea behind the Akatsuki was to capture each and every one of the bijou. Remember, each one, like Naruto, was a Jinchuriki who had a tailed beast inside them. Naruto had the 9 tails, then there were others like Gaara who had the 1 tail, and we also had Killer Bee who had the 8 tails. So, every time they captured a Jinchuriki, they would take the bijou, feed it to the statue, and each time, one of its eyes would open. So if you count the number of eyes here, obviously there are 9, because we go up to the 9 tails. Honestly, this Geto Mazo statue is super awesome, and this whole part, like the trunk, and it's just doing the summoning. They would go, conquer a bijou, feed it to the statue, and that's basically what defines the whole Akatsuki arc, and honestly, they nailed it. And here I had this extra little piece, and since it has this pipe part, I kind of figured out where it goes, and it was simply on this side, and it really completes the whole thing. Now I'm going to put this on, so give me a moment while we check out the close-up of the summoning that was eating up all the bijou. You know, every time a bijou was pulled out of its Jinchuriki, what happened to the Jinchuriki? If you know, please leave it in the comments below. It's honestly the absolute worst possible outcome for a person, a truly devastating fate, but that's precisely what happened to Naruto's beloved mom. Please leave it in the comments if you truly know what exactly happens when a powerful bijou is tragically extracted from a Jinchuriki. Let's now check out the incredibly detailed close-up. I'm going to carefully put on one of Pain's most lethal and iconic weapons right here. And now, we finally get to the coolest and most exciting part of the entire unboxing experience. It's time to proudly show off the official certificates that our wonderful friends at Cloud Studios so thoughtfully sent us. Here we have this neat little card, which is actually a pristine white in color. We have our impressive Pain figure over here, with the distinct name, Pain, clearly visible, just like we saw on the original box. Here's the official certificate itself, but it curiously doesn't explicitly state the piece number. Where exactly does that crucial information show up? On this particular one, honestly, when I first saw it, I immediately thought it's very much like a Han Solo piece, and they did an absolutely fantastic job with Pain's intricate detailing. Honestly, it's really unique. The plaque is pretty interesting, and it's made of metal. It actually feels pretty heavy. And down here is where we have our piece number, 545 out of 947 pieces, and you're looking at one of them here in the Darkoburi studio. And now, here it is, the whole piece set up. It looks absolutely awesome. I'm going to get more pieces from Cloud Studio because honestly, they didn't disappoint. If you like Naruto, this is a piece worthy of any collector. For everyone who asked for a Naruto unboxing, here you go. This one's for the fans, and honestly, it's spectacular. Check out all our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Medium. We're on every single platform. So stop by, drop a powerful like, share, and leave a comment so we can reach even more people. Also, check out our website, where besides getting your code, we have lots of Darkoburi memorabilia like thermoses, mugs, keychains, and we have a book where I explain how to get started so you can buy without getting scanned when purchasing these figures. Again, I bought this from a distributor called Kyanation. We'll leave the name for you, and honestly, you won't lose your money. You'll get the right piece. And what a beautiful piece we had today. If you liked the unboxing, leave a comment, and if not, you know what to do. That's it for me. See you next week with a new video, and as always, dark cutting. Peace out.